What are some very creepy facts? Imagine being totally aware of someone performing CPR but you physically can't move or respond. Well, that's what happens when you get bitten by a blue-ringed octopus. You have approx 6 minutes between being bitten and someone starting CPR to keep your heart and lungs functioning to ensure you survive. All whilst being totally aware of what is happening to you. Neurotoxins are fun. I once read that you should play dead if a bear attacks you. Unless they start licking your wounds, because that means they plan to eat you. That still haunts me to this day. Edit, if it helps, I'm pretty sure I was reading about grizzly bears at the time during one of my fevered grizzly man rabbit holes. One reason that crows and ravens are associated with death is because they would often follow armies as they marched to battle. Being both carrion birds and extremely intelligent, they realized that a large group of armed men marching on one direction meant that there would be a tasty meal of corpses to eat soon afterwards. The astronauts aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger most likely didn't pass until they hit the water miles below the initial explosion. The human body can be drained of blood in 6 seconds given adequate vacuuming systems. Crocodiles can gallop like a horse. I don't like knowing this, so I am cursing you people with this knowledge as well. Fortunately, alligators cannot. Your brain can play tricks on you to make you see monsters in the mirror. Called the Troxler effect. The Troxler effect is an optical illusion that affects how you perceive things, both visually and mentally. There's a spider that gives you a 3H long boner. Before you die from its bite. Edit, the boner it gives you is very painful. They used real corpses in the 1982 film Poltergeist for the ending pool scene. The actress did not know until after the scene was filmed. There are upwards of 300 active serial killers in the world. Female mummies in ancient Egypt were always more decomposed than their male counterparts. They discovered that this was because male bodies were embalmed a lot sooner than female bodies. Female bodies were kept at the family home until they started to decompose in order to avoid necrophilia at the embalmers. Since 1900, over 13,000 people have been murdered by serial killers in the USA. The men of the ship Essex, the true event that inspires the story Moby Dick, avoided islands after being shipwrecked for fear of cannibals. The islands were settled and landing there would have brought salvation to the survivors. Ironically, because of this bypass, the men ran out of food and were forced to eat each other for survival. A single tiger has killed over 436 people in India. Most people smell different when they're awake. Hearing is the last thing to go after you die. You just might hear the paramedics and firefighters call off CPR. From Atlas Obscura by Fodder, Thuris, and Morton, necropants, reader's discretion advised, in Iceland. A long ass time ago, 17th C. Friends followed complex rules to obtain a dead man's skin to turn them into pants. 1. You had to get permission from the dude to use his skin after he kicked the bucket. 2. You would then wait until burial formalities concluded. 3. You would rob the poop out of your buddy's grave. 4. You would cut the waist and peel the bottom half of the body off in one perfect flay. 5. You would then steal a coin from a poor widow, preferably your butts. 6. Place the coin in the scrotum of the necropants to attract cosmic poop, specifically more wealth in life, and leave the groin full of coins at all times. 7. Pass that poop down to your kid. Fun fact, the Museum of Icelandic Sorcery and Witchcraft has a pair on display for all of us sickos to gawk at. Sense of impending doom is an actual symptom that often precludes your death. Usually in cases of heart attack. Very creepy for some of us that suffer from anxiety and panic attacks to begin with. Both share that symptom. People don't take their anti-malarial drugs when they travel because they hear bad stories about the side effects and they see native people in the areas living okay without taking pills every day. The truth is, populations native to malaria endemic areas have all passed through pretty intense natural selection for survival and have a host of genes that prevent them from dying or suffering the other worst effects. Also, most of the resistance is built up over time. This is why it's most common for children to die rather than adults. Whatever people have heard about the side effects of the antimalarials, getting it is so much worse. I, fortunately, have never had it. But I study it as part of my work and people have told me about having it and they all say the same thing: it is so awful you can't believe you're even still alive. It comes in cycles. Usually 48 hours. And each cycle is agonizing and brings you the brink of death. Sometimes it takes you. Sometimes it spares you for another few hours until it starts again. And there are forms that, even if you clear the infection with drugs, it still remains dormant in your system and can come back at any time. Edit. I don't want to freak people out too much. There are drug combinations that can kill every stage of the parasite as long as there is no drug resistance. Albert Fish, the serial killer, loved eating poop. More than 7,000 people die annually due to the doctor's bad handwriting. Human brains when they dry out smell like cat piss, that stinky ammonia smell. Worked in an ER for 17 years in CT. Had a gunshot to the head come in and a chunk fell onto my shoe and didn't notice. While driving home was like, WTF, did my cat piss in the car or something? Question mark. Went to take my shoes off and there was edit for all you people with morbid curiosity. Fresh brains look like cream cheese mixed with strawberry jam. Edit 2. No. They died. Trans life harvested organs. CNN has had a pre-recorded broadcast from the 90s which they will premiere during the end of the world. After getting stung by a cone snail, you don't feel the sting for a little bit. There is no antivenin and it can be lethal. Treatment is basically keeping the victim alive until the venom wears off. Half of your favorite 70s rock stars had 14-year-old girlfriends. The stonefish, an incredibly venomous fish living in tropical waters mostly off the coast of Australia and parts of us, can cause pain that only escalates with time. Eventually the pain will subside, but even after the barb is removed, patients have reported increasing pain 12 plus hours later. Without antivenin or denaturing the venom with excessive heat, the pain builds and builds until the patients request euthanasia. Its spines hold the venom, hidden in its dorsal fins. Aboriginals living around the Great Barrier Reef have corroborees, large gatherings, and will during these gatherings hold reenactments of people being stung by this monster, for what I assume is either amusement, learning, or both. Edit. Corroboree clarification. Edit 2. Pain does eventually end. Reminded of suicide tree where pain does not. Terrible leaves for toilet paper. Thank you for all the upvotes. So glad one of my parents' horror stories from Australia is so well received. There's a parasite that enters a fish's mouth, eats the tongue and replaces itself as the fish's new tongue. According to Abe Lincoln's bodyguard Crook, he said Lincoln had a dream about his own assassination 3 nights in a row before he was killed. Crook told Lincoln not to go on that fateful night, and all Lincoln said was goodbye. Crook before he went to the play. This was very odd as Lincoln always said, good night not goodbye. The US has lost 6 nuclear warheads in total. A black mamba is the fastest snake which can slither at a speed of 12.5 miles an hour, 20 km/h. They have neurotoxins which are fast acting. The venom shuts down the nervous system and paralyzes the victim. Its venom is able to kill 10 people and it repeatedly bites. To add on to this, there is an almost 100% kill rate and can kill in 20 minutes. Mount Everest is covered in frozen corpses because removing them is very unsafe and time consuming. They are easily viewed from the climbing routes and some are used as trail markers. Polar bears are the only animals that are thought to actively hunt humans. Edit, maybe not the only ones, but it's good now. I dropped several thumbtacks and have not found all of them. Pigs will eat anything. There are stories of pigs entering farmhouses and eating newborn humans. Serial killer Richard Chase took any unlocked door as an invitation to come inside. Men who are hanged get a death erection, known as rigor erectus. Pretty awkward for the family, I assume. If you stifle a sneeze, there's a chance you can damage organs in your head, including eye blood vessels, rupturing your eardrums, and possibly rupture a brain aneurysm, which means there's a small chance stifling a sneeze can kill you. Better to be the loud ass with the sneeze that can be heard around the world than a dead loud ass cause someone told you to stifle that sneeze. Cockroaches have been recorded eating human flesh, both living and dead, as well as fingernails, eyelashes, feet, and hands. The American cockroach and German cockroach are more likely to bite humans than other species. Pretty sure Australian cockroaches do something equally creepy. But as an Australian who plans to sleep at some point in the future, I'm not going to Google it. If you begin to display symptoms of rabies, you will go crazy and die. There's no cure. Your brain will slowly melt until you're dead. It was once discovered that a fir tree was growing inside a human body. Artyom Sidorkin went to the doctor suspecting something wrong with his lungs. The doctors thought they were dealing with a tumor, but turns out he had inhaled a fir tree seed which had sprouted and had begun growing in his lungs. Edit, wow, so Grey's Anatomy is a popular show. I'm sure this was the inspiration for that episode. Assuming, of course, you're a student who attends school in a classroom. The single most important factor that determines whether or not you may be shot by a school shooter is full stop. A locked door. No one has ever died in a school shooting if they were behind a locked classroom door. The smell of a freshly cut lawn is actually a chemical distress signal released from the grass as it's cut. You're smelling the souls and screaming of the innocent. Blobfish in its natural habitat looks like a normal fish, but it lives so deep underwater that it doesn't use a normal gas bladder to keep itself balanced. Instead, it has a spongy skin that is slightly less dense than water, which becomes damaged and bloated when fishermen bring it up too quickly. It's not really the ugliest fish. It has just experienced something worse than one of us being thrown into outer space. Between sea level and space, there's 1 atmospheric pressure of difference. Between sea level and 2,000 feet underwater, their upper limit, there's 60 atmospheres of difference. In 2015, a young woman began to have headaches. They discovered that she had a brain tumor, and when the doctors removed it, they were shocked to see that it was a lump resembling skin that contained bone, teeth, and hair. But this was no parasitic twin. The mass was called a teratoma, or monstrous tumor. When the woman was an embryo, some cell tissue fell off and ended up where wasn't supposed to be. Her brain. It then developed hair and teeth while the rest of her grew as normal. I don't want to cause too much alarm, but 90% of pictures hung in homes are crooked. At roughly 1100 degrees Fahrenheit, a body takes 2-4 hours to be ash. An elephant masturbates by slapping its pee-pee on itself. The amount of superfan toxic sites and how little they are maintained. Dolphins are freaking monsters, and although this one isn't as creepy as other comments, but gangs of male dolphins can trap a female, slap her around with their tails, and forcibly frick her for weeks. Dolphins are fricked up, man. The reason dogs like squeaky toys is because the squeak reminds them of small animals dying. In the Czech Republic, there is a church called the Sedlec Ossuary that has decorations made entirely of human bones. This happened because there were too many people in the cemetery to bury everyone. And the church leaders claimed that if their bones became part of the church, it only made them closer to God. Nice propaganda spin there, guys. If you live to age 70, you will have shed around 105 pounds of skin. Edit, because most seem confused. I mean over time, not all at once, that would be terrible.
Hi there. Look, if you enjoyed the video, well, why not go ahead and hit that like and subscribe to Reddit Stories. In fact, if you want to see even more responses to this thread, well then, take a look. There's the link in the description below. And remember, show some love to those authors while you're there. And I look forward to seeing you next time.